Hello, my name is Mark Hale, and welcome to the first edition of Hale's Bells. This is kind of just my way of sounding off about today's current events and kind of giving you a different perspective on things. You may agree with me, you may not. I don't know. I'll be the first to tell you that I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know really a whole lot about how to do videos on computers or upload them to YouTube or anything, but I'm going to try. And I guess if you're watching this, I succeeded. What I'm going to talk about mostly is current events and things of that nature from my perspective, which may be different from yours. It may not. I don't know. I can give you the perspective out of my 36 years of my life, growing up in a small town which isn't so small anymore. I'm broadcasting to you from Mount Juliet, Tennessee. It's a suburb of Nashville, Tennessee. It's about 15 miles to the east of Tennessee. I live on the wonderful and beautiful Old Hickory Lake. I grew up here my whole entire life, and throughout my life, I've had some experiences that have shaped and pointed my worldview probably to a different perspective than yours. I have to tell you that I may not be a Christian per se, but I have a Christian background, and that plays heavily into a lot of things that I say or do. On some of the topics that we'll be discussing over the next, hopefully, years, we're going to start out with one or two little broadcasts here and see what we can do. And hopefully I'll get a different background than what's back here eventually. But some of the things that I want to do is kind of get out in the public's eye, kind of where society is as a whole right now, because I really and firmly believe that our country is really in dire straits right now, and the more that I watch things unfold, the more I start believing the Bible. Can you believe that? Things that are going on are absolutely amazing, and it's distressing as a patriot and as a person of faith that believes that this country was founded on the principles of faith. It's amazing to watch things unfold, things that I never thought, and I know that our parents and grandparents never thought would ever happen. One of the first topics that I'll be discussing about is convicted felons and their rights. And I have to say that that's a pretty personal issue to me, because I'm a convicted felon. And I'm probably not like most convicted felons, as in saying that I don't strive to do evil all the time. I've tried to do the best that I can, but then kind of got wayward bound, and I did the things that I did, and stole some money through cashing checks that I shouldn't have, and I paid the price for it, and was convicted and sentenced to 8 years. I spent nearly 3 years in the penitentiary here in Tennessee, and it kind of opened my eyes to the things that I was doing. Have I changed my ways somewhat? I try not to steal anymore, because the penitentiary is not made for people like me at all. I'm not a killer. I've never violently attacked anyone and stolen from them or anything like that. But while in prison, I was able to meet many people that were like myself, and that saw the world kind of like I did, and now that we've been released, or some of them are going to be released soon, we kind of gotten into, this country has kind of gotten into a way of your debt's never paid to society. Are there those that should be punished forever? Well, absolutely. Absolutely. Did I deserve to be there? Well, of course, I did wrong. But should I be punished the rest of my life for that? Absolutely not. Now, you may not agree with everything that I say on this show. You may not agree with the way I look. You may not agree with the way I think. You may not agree with anything. But I want you to know that everything that I say will be done with the utmost respect. I'm kind of an old school guy. I'm a white guy, as you can see, a fairly large one. And I'm white people. And black people are black people, not African Americans. I don't really know how many of them were actually born in Africa. So they're American citizens to me, is what I'm trying to say. Is my view somewhat racist? Of course, we all are to some extent. I won't say everybody 100% is racist to some extent, but I firmly believe that a good bit of us are. The majority of us are in some way or another. And this comes from my experiences as, having friends, black friends that I hung out with, and watched how they interacted with people. Mexicans are Mexican. People from Mexico are Mexicans. People from Canada are Canadians. Muslims are Muslims. They're not, whatever. They're just Muslims. Christians are Christians. We've subcategorized all that to Catholics and denominations and Baptists and Nazarenes and all that. And I don't try to get caught up with all that. So just giving you a little bit of background on me, and probably rambling a little bit, but this is my first show. And I don't know what I'm doing. And I'll be the first to tell you that. But the issue at hand right now, and I have to say that today is April the 9th. 2013. We will hopefully before we get into our subject of convicted felons, hopefully we will eventually get to the point where I'm able to take phone calls. I mean, you can call me on my cell phone. I got one. Eventually, I'm not going to give that number out just yet. But I want to make sure that I have some way of controlling what is said, not said on the program, and I don't mean that blocking the freedom of speech, but just language. I'm not big on cussing. I have, but I'm not big on it. Of course, like everything else, it probably has its time and place. So just not with me and not on this show. And also, I kind of want to see how things go and see if anybody even pays attention or watches this silly thing. I'm going to try to do a 30-minute section, or segment, I guess is what they call it in the broadcast world, every day. Hopefully it'll get to where it's at nighttime, but it's kind of hard with family and everything here to be alone and be quiet. You know how it is. So here we go, and we're going to take off with our first topic, which is convicted felons. Now, I don't know about your state, but our state is pretty clear on what it means to be a convicted felon. In the state of Tennessee, if you are a convicted felon, you are a convicted felon for life. There is no getting out of it. Matter of fact, you have to register in the state of Tennessee as a convicted felon. There are many different kinds of felons. You have felons that are murderers, rapists. You have felons that are people that break in and hold you hostage, and aggravated burglary, robbery, all kinds of different things. But did you know that there's also a convicted felon for criminal trespassing? Criminal trespassing. For those of you that don't know what criminal trespassing is, this could be something as simple as a kid sitting in a Publix parking lot, just hanging out with his friends. And eventually, now I don't know what the exact laws are, and I'll look it up here shortly, and I'll figure it out. But I do believe, if I'm not mistaken now, there is a law that says after a certain amount, and I'm just going to take a stab at this, but of the same misdemeanors like criminal trespassing, that it becomes a felony. You become a habitual offender and it becomes a felony. So a homeless person on the streets can sleep on a church steps or whatever, or bench or whatever happens to be there. And if they're cited so many times for sleeping there, they become a felon for doing nothing more than just sleeping. You know, I'm not saying that the churches would probably say anything about it, but it's possible. I've seen people with felonies for the most strangest things. I've seen people in jail for felonies for writing checks. Writing checks. And and that sounds ridiculous, but there are a lot of people out there like me that don't have a lot of money. And the electric bills due, and they write a worthless check. Well, nowadays, if it's over a certain amount, say your electric bill is $500, which I'm sure that they could do it if it's any amount. But for $500, and you write that electric bill, you're behind in your bills, you just need them to stay on, you've made all the arrangements that you can, and you write that check. Well, guess what? The electric company can make you a felon. If they press the issue, they can make you a felon. Is it right to write a check that you know is bad? Well, no, absolutely not. But when you're in that situation, what would you do? Well, what would you do? See, not everybody in this country is blessed. Not equally. I think that's one of the things that Obama's trying to do, but we're not going to get into that because I'm not a huge Obama fan. And for the most part, I'm Republican, even though I don't agree with everything they do either. I don't think there's a politician out there that makes everyone happy. But a convicted felon has to pay for his crimes for the rest of his life. We can't vote, but we have to obey the rules. Whatever happened to the days of paying your debt to society? I got 8 years. And when my 8 years are up, does that take away my felony? Absolutely not. Does that make it so I can get a good, decent job at the bank, even though I've changed my ways and decided to do something different? No, it doesn't. Even when I'm 70 years old and been straight and clean and free of crime for 50 years, I still got to pay for that felony. Still have to pay for it. Can't get good jobs at the government. You know, can't get jobs at the electric company. Can't get jobs anywhere that will support my family. You know, and as a divorced guy that has 2 kids, you know, imagine $1,000 of your income coming off the top. Come post-tax, not pre-tax, post-tax. $1,000 coming off the top to pay child support. And then turning around and having to provide a place for you to live and all that. Do you know how much money you've got to make in this country, and well, I don't know, I won't say the whole country. We'll just say this state where I live. To make it, and having to pay an average of $1,000 for 2 kids. Some people pay more, some people pay less. Let's just call it an average of $1,000. Having to pay all that, you have to make a minimum, bring home a minimum of $30,000 a year. That's bring home. That's over $15 an hour. Really, it's about $17 an hour if you take the average, multiply it times 2 is 34, and and it's $34,000. So your bring home be roughly 28, 30, depending on your tax situation. But that's just to make it. That's to scrape by. That's just to pay your basic bills. Heaven forbid anything happen to you, like you get injured at work and have workers' comp that covers some things but not everything. Or if you have a job that doesn't have health insurance, and I understand that Obama's trying to make it so everybody has health insurance, but that's a whole different topic altogether. What we've got going on with the felons, though, is what we're concerned about right now. And I'll try to stay on topic because I really do. I get off on a tangent about different things, especially some of the not so good things that Obama's done lately. But we'll get into that later. Being a convicted felon is really hard. And some of the laws need to be changed. In the state of Tennessee right now, I read on May Beaver's website that they have, or maybe it was on her Facebook page, that they are trying to get it to where felons that come out of prison automatically get health care. Well, I'm a firm believer in this, and you may not be, but imagine if I get out of prison and something happens to me and I have to go to the hospital, who pays for that? I mean, the hospital has to write it off or whatever, which in essence jacks up your rates, jacks up the hospital bills, and makes it so the insurances get charged a whole lot more money than what they should. And it's just a trickle-down effect. And you guys are smart enough to understand how it all works. I'm not. I just know that if they have to eat mine and 1,000 other guys' bill for $5,000, that's a lot of money. I mean, that's a lot of money, and they have to make it up somewhere. They don't just completely write it off. But after a certain amount of time, we should be able to start working and start finding jobs that have insurance, even though they may not pay all our basic bills or whatever. But we should have an opportunity to get back on our feet. Because I don't know about you, but could you imagine being taken out of your income for 3, 4, 5, 10 years even? What about these guys that have been locked up for 20 years and then they get out? What do they do? And they get out with nothing. If working for 34 cents an hour or 17 cents an hour or whatever wage they might have been making in prison, they come out with nothing. It may be a small check, $400 or $500, even if it was $3,000. What's that going to do? Get you a rinky-dink car and maybe, a couple of months in a hotel or maybe a place to stay for a little while, but then you got to find a job and start all over. Imagine starting in the world with nothing. It's not like when you turn 18 and you're emancipated from your parents and you're on your own, or 22 or whatever age it is that you were emancipated. Whatever age it was that you decided to go out on your own. It's not the same as that because you have a safety net. Not everybody. I won't say that everybody does. It doesn't apply to all situations. But in the majority of our cases, it has. But imagine nothing. And those that didn't have parents that could help them and be their safety net understand what it's like to start out with nothing. Now imagine trying to do that when there are limited doors that are open, limited opportunities where the only jobs you can get is at White Castle making $7, $8 an hour. I think minimum wage is what, $7.25? I don't even know. $7, $8. Even if it was $9, I mean, you're still talking $360 a week minus taxes. So you're still what, $280, $290 a week? Say $300. That's bring home $1,200 a month. Around here, average rent's about $700, $800. So if your average rent is $700, $800 and you're bringing home $1,200, take a mathematician to figure that one out. The money's going to run out. I'd really like to see some legislation in defense of convicted felons and felons that get out and decide that they want to do something different with their life and that decide that they want to move forward and leave the past in the past. In the Christian world, they preach forgiveness. Even in Hinduism and Buddhism and all that, they preach forgiveness. They teach forgiveness. In our country, society has gotten to the point where they don't teach and preach forgiveness anymore. It's once stained, always stained. You can never wash it fully. That we'll get on to. We'll get on to another topic, and I don't want to get off topic here, but people will get on to a subject about like adultery. Adultery runs rampant throughout the country. And it's all over TV, and he's cheating on this one and this and on his husband and wife, and blah, blah, blah. Well, we're supposed to forgive them, but not somebody that writes a bad check. They're to be punished the rest of their life, but we're supposed to overlook the little things that aren't illegal. Even though they're socially and morally wrong, both instances, but one's legal and one's illegal. Forgiveness is forgiveness no matter what it is. It doesn't matter if it's forgiveness for adultery. It doesn't matter if it's forgiveness of sins. It doesn't matter if it's forgiveness for little white lies that we tell. Forgiveness is forgiveness. And all forgiveness is the total and complete removal of the stain that has caused the problem. And we've gotten away from that. It's kind of like the innocent till proven guilty fiasco that has gone on over the last, or transition, excuse me, not fiasco, but transition that has gone on over the last few years here. Used to be in this country that if you were suspected of a crime, they may detain you, but they give you a reasonable bond amount so you can get out and defend yourself. Now it's not like that. You turn on any cop show, and they're slamming people on the ground for no reason. Now imagine, and I want you to imagine, you've been drinking, you're a little tipsy. I know that a good bit of people in this country drink. And say you've been drinking a little bit, and you're out in the public, and you're a little bit loud. You're just having a good time. You're not really doing anything wrong. We've all seen these guys laughing, having a good time, and all of a sudden there's a cop holding you, grabbing you from behind, hollering he's the police. And your first instinct, and most people's first instinct when grabbed from behind, is to jerk away. I mean, how many rapists in this country have grabbed somebody from behind and hollered police? Or how many people have robbed houses doing that? It's a common thing now. Criminals have learned. I've heard about them. I was locked up with them. I know how they work. They do these things. They take every advantage they can. But just because this person pulls away now, or tries to move their arms, because now their arms all of a sudden hurting in a position that is not normal or natural, and trust me, it does hurt. Now they're slammed on the ground, bleeding, and being charged with resisting arrest. What were you arresting me for? Haven't done nothing. Being loud in public? I mean, seriously? I watch these cop shows all the time where, I'm not saying that everybody's innocent, but they don't deserve to be slammed. We are still in the United States of America. This is still a free country for the most part. I mean, we got more laws. We got laws for laws, but it's still a free country. The police do not have the right to put their hands on you just because they think you're doing something. What's to stop any old cop that's gone off the deep end from just grabbing you and doing whatever they want with you? Just because whatever. I remember a story, my friend, and it's ironic because the guy he was riding with is now a detective here in Mount Juliet. We're driving down the road, just a normal Mount Juliet road here. It was a little 2-lane road at the time, and I don't know the reason why they got stopped, but the cop walks up to the window and tells them that he smells an odor of marijuana, and pulls them out of the car and slams them up against the hood and slams the cuffs on them and whatever. Now, mind you, these two guys didn't even smoke. They went to a Christian school where they played football and baseball, were upstanding citizens, so much so that the guy went on to be a detective, and he's a great man. And all because he thought he detected the hint of marijuana. These guys have never been in any trouble in their life. They were teenagers. Why would he do that? Because just like every other profession in this country, the police, the government, everybody else has human beings that work in them. We had an incident in the Wilson County Jail where inmates were beat to death. And officers were convicted of these deaths. Were they given sentences like as if I had done it? Absolutely not. A few of them got 5-year sentences. I think one of them got a 10-year sentence for the death of a man. And if I had done that, I'd have probably got life, but maybe even the death penalty. But that's neither here nor there. But they're convicted felons. Now they're felons for life. And being a convicted felon is a lifetime punishment. And I'd like to see legislation that will change that will turn around and change that. And get it to where those that do want to change can actually change and get back into society. Why should I not be able to hunt the rest of my life because I'm a convicted felon for writing some checks? Why is that? Should a murderer that used a gun to kill someone not be able to own a gun? Well, I would say yes. Violent criminals that have a violent past and have a tendency of that. But after so long, every felon shouldn't be treated the same. Because just like every crime's not the same, and just like not every crime carries the same punishment, convicted felons should not have to pay the same price for the rest of their life. That's giving me a lifetime sentence no matter what. You're giving me a lifetime sentence. A lifetime sentence. For the crimes that you committed 20 years ago. You still can't hunt. You still can't do the things. What if I want to take my kids hunting? I can't do it. I can't even go. Can't be around them. Can't be around the firearms. And people will say things, and it's just ignorance. I won't say it's stupidity, but it's just ignorance. Well, you should have thought of that before you did the crime. Well, have you ever done something not thinking about the future? I would say that 100% of us, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that 100% of us has done things without thinking about the repercussions of the future. Maybe got mad and did something. Maybe it was a picture of someone and you tore it in two and didn't mean to. Maybe it was something else. I don't know. Maybe you argued with someone. I really don't know. But a convicted felon should not have to pay the price. Not all of them. Not every single last one of them should not have to pay the price the rest of their life. Yes, after a certain amount of years, I think it's 7, 8 years, something like that. Yeah, I could apply for a job at the bank. But is society going to forgive me? Is that person going to hire me? Chances are not. Should I work at a bank after cashing checks? No. The temptation would be there to steal again, no matter how long it's been. As far as that goes, I would think that for me personally, it may not be the same for everybody else, but for me personally, and it may not, but I wouldn't want to put myself in that situation. It's kind of like if there was if I was married and there was a female friend that I was attracted to, I wouldn't go around her, and be alone with her. So it's kind of the same thing. But I would just really like to see some legislation where we defended those that were trying to, because we're still United States citizens. We still have to obey the laws and rules and regulations of this country, this great country. And I love America. I love this country. And it saddens me deeply to see the state of it. But if we can start helping people instead of instead of trying to keep people down. Why do you want to keep me down? What have I done to you for you to want to keep me down if I want to change and better myself? Society preaches forgiveness, and even though I may not agree with what you do, I'm supposed to be tolerant of that. But if you don't agree with what I do, then I have to pay for the rest of my life. And I really don't want to do that any longer. And I'd really like to start something a movement or something, anything that may change that for the future. And now, I've been rambling on about convicted felons for 30 minutes, but that's just because it's near and dear to my heart. And it may have bored you. I don't know. You may have stopped watching. But I hope not. Because now we're going to go on to our next topic, which is gun control. I am sick and tired of hearing about gun control and tougher regulations on gun owners. Okay. You've heard it all before. But I'm going to repeat it. Guns do not kill people. You can control the guns all you want. Growing up, we had rifles hanging on the shelf. We had on a rack on the wall. I remember my dad had one above his nightstand or above his dresser in his bedroom that had a 243. I think it was a 30-30 or something like that. A 44, big rifle just laying there. Ammunition in the drawer below it. Not one time in the 18 years that I lived with my parents, not one time did one of those guns get off the shelf and go kill anyone. The only killing those guns did, and I don't even know if it even succeeded in killing any. Well, I know the 16 gauge did. We shot some doves with it, but the rest of the guns, I think we just shot at deer. I don't think we ever actually killed one. I think I shot one in the butt once with my 243. But it never jumped off there and killed anyone. But we knew how to respect the guns. We knew that if we did anything with those guns, we would get in trouble. Not only that, we would hurt someone. And that would be the worst part. We used to take extra care of our guns. We never walked with them loaded. Never. Unless we were walking dove hunting, walking and dove hunting. But if you were transporting a gun, you kept it in the case and the ammunition separate. When you went to the tree stand, you unloaded the gun, you sent the ammo up first, you sent the rifle up next. If you had one of those tree stands like we had, where you had to take the rope and pull the gun up and all that. But we never had an issue. We never had an issue with wanting to shoot someone. Was there times that you got mad enough to do it? Well, of course. But the guns never did anything. Matter of fact, if you lay a gun down, it's not going to load itself. It's not going to pull its own trigger. I mean, even dropping a gun, 99,000 times out of 100,000 times, or whatever the saying is, it's not going to do it. It takes people to pull the trigger and kill people with guns. And it's not the law-abiding citizens that go through all the checks and checkpoints and applications and background checks. Goodness, it's so hard to get a gun now. You can't be a felon. You can't have done this. And you can't even, have a DUI. What does that got to do with me hunting a deer? You're taking away my rights as an American citizen to feed myself. You're pretty much telling me that the only way that I can eat is to go to the grocery store or to a fast food restaurant and spend money. That I don't have the right to go out and shoot an animal to eat. How far has this country come? How far has that come? What's next? Are you going to tell me I can't grow vegetables in my own garden? Because I'm telling you, that's where it's headed. If you don't believe me, it's a trickle-down effect. Each little bit of control that you give to the government, and that's what this is about. It's not about whether I can go buy a gun or not. And it's not whether, Joe Schmo can get a gun from his mom who legally owns one, but he can go and he's crazy and he wants to go shoot everybody. It's not about that. Because those instances are few and far between. Now, yes, they've gotten more prevalent over the last few years. And there's no doubt that they're sad and they're heartbreaking. But that's where the problem is in the heart. The problem is not the guns. The problem is not that kid's mom that owned a gun legally and he took it and went and killed all those kids in Newtown. That's not the problem. The problem is in the heart. The problem is not teaching people about love and respect of other human beings. We're all the time. Gay marriage. This is going to be a topic for another show. But people that are gay press their issue. They got their issue out there. Respect, tolerance, accept us. It's about love, and you can't control who you love. And they're all about that. But they're also the same ones that tell me that I can't teach this child about love and real love. And that I can't teach them about respect. I can't teach them about acceptance. I can't teach them about, in a Christian way. I can't do that. All the things that this kid may have needed that may have prevented what happened. And I'm not saying that the gay community is the only ones that do that, but they're on the forefront. Them and those that are supporting them, they see things differently than I do, and that's fine. That's their point of view. But then they want to blame legal gun owners for what happens. No, that's messed up. That's backwards. I do not see, and I've said this to a lot of my friends, but I'm still waiting for the day that someone sues Anheuser-Busch for a DUI. Because that's the same concept. That's like me suing a tobacco company, which is beyond me that they ever won a lawsuit, regardless of whether they put, addictive additives in it or not. If you know that if you smoke, you could get cancer, or that it's bad for you. Surely to goodness, you didn't think that breathing in the same fumes that comes out of your tailpipe of your car directly into your lungs was good for you. There's consequences to everything that you do. And that's a major consequence. But anyway, I'm appalled at the way the government is using gun control as an issue. And then deaths of innocent people, mind you. I understand that in Colorado and Newtown and Columbine, all that, which is a sad, sad tragedy. But we didn't learn from it. We're using it. We're using it to gain political control. We're using it to advance political agendas. And that doesn't make any sense to me. Why would you do that? You're not honoring those people that died. You're not trying to keep crime. If you were so worried about that, you would be in every project in every city searching down every government housing for guns. Because that's where they are. Most of your illegal guns are owned in those types of settings. They're not owned out in the country by Joe Schmo public that likes to go deer hunting on the weekends. That's not where they're at. So why are you attacking the NRA and those that believe in the Second Amendment rights? That's a right given to us, that we have the right to bear arms. There's no asterisk in there that says you have the right to bear arms unless you don't pass this test or if you got this in your background. Technically, anybody can own a gun without having to go through the government. That was the whole point of the Second Amendment. The whole point of the Second Amendment was so that the citizens of the United States of America, you have to understand, most people don't understand what the United States of America means. The United States, states' rights outweigh federal rights. The United States was given the Second Amendment to prevent the federal government from overthrowing its citizens. That's the only reason why it was given to them. It wasn't given to us so we could hunt, even though I harp on that, because I think everybody should be able to hunt if they choose, and if they don't, that's fine. Grow your vegetable garden, whatever. But that is why we were given that right, was to keep our government, the federal government, from taking over the states and becoming a federal entity where we're no longer the United States. We're a union. If we become a union, do you remember a famous union? Namely, the Soviet Union. And that's what this country will be. And it's not just about your Second Amendment rights. Where does it stop? That's the question that I keep asking everyone, and nobody can answer me. Because if you think about it, and let me give you an example. You remember years ago that curse words on TV was taboo. You did not hear them. Buddy, the FCC was all on you if you said a cuss word. But little by little, it wasn't all at once that they just said, okay, well now you can cuss on TV. That didn't happen. Over about a 40-year time period, it started to change. They could say this little word. Well, they could say this, but they have to bleep out this. And they could say God, but not the other half of it, or vice versa. Now it's vice versa. Now they bleep out the God and let them say the 4-letter curse word, which I think is highly ironic. You know, and another topic for a different show, because, well, you know, one of these days, I'm just telling you, one of these days is coming. I'm going to be in the minority, and I'll be able to sue you, because for years we've been in the majority, and all these minorities have done what they can to, and when I say minorities, I don't mean racists. I mean those that believe that cussing should be allowed on television, have done what they can to get that. Now, turn on South Park. Turn on Comedy Central at any point in time in the night. They're saying the F word. They're saying, you know, 4-letter words and everything they want to do. There's no bleeping. None whatsoever. None. You ever turn on Cartoon Network after dark? You know, and this is a kid station. The other day, I heard them say cuss words on a commercial, which was a first. I'd never heard it before. And now they have some kind of dip that is called a cuss word. You know, yeah, you can argue the argument that, you know, well, hell's in the Bible and this and that, but they know what they're doing. So little by little, that got to the point to where now you can hear F-bombs on TV at nighttime. You know, from no cussing to that, little by little. So where does the gun control stop? Where does the gun control issue stop? You know, now you got tougher regulations on those that can legally own arms. Well, how many guys that you pick up in, let's just say, the urban neighborhoods, how many guys do you pick up that have a concealed weapons permit or even a a licensed gun owner. How many of them have that? Where did they get that gun? It's not about that. It's just like the drugs coming into the country. It's not about the drugs coming into the country. It's about those that have the drugs and want the drugs and can make money off the drugs. It's the same with the guns. It's not about legalized gun ownership, because I would say, and I'm going to use the term 90%, and I think the term 90% is very funny, because I heard a guy on TV say, yesterday was Monday, and the guy said that he read a thing about 90% of Americans believe in stricter gun laws. And his joke was, you can't even get 90% of Americans to agree that it's Monday. And I firmly agree with that. But I would say that 90% of the gun crimes in this country, maybe even more than that, maybe 95 or 98%, are done by people that do not have a legal right to own a gun. And when I say a legal right, it's kind of an oxymoron, because the Second Amendment guarantees you a legal right, but then you have to pass checks. I'm sure our forefathers saw that coming. It wasn't like that there wasn't shootings in their days. We're talking about a country that had the wild, wild west, and that hung people that they thought was witches. So, this country has a pretty violent history anyway. And it wasn't like that there wasn't duels and shootings going on even way back when before they even got on the boats to come over here. So they're not obtuse to human error and human ways and the way that a criminal mind thinks. If they were not aware of the way that the criminal mind thinks, we would have never had the amendments. We would have never had the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution of the United States in 1787. We wouldn't have had that if they were not aware that of the men's folly, a men's way of thinking, that they were fully aware of that. They were fully aware that if you put man in power of the federal government, that eventually the federal government would be called upon to oversee everything, and that it would supersede its powers. And it has done so. Excuse me, had to wipe a little spit off of there. And that's where we've gotten. I believe there were 19 enumerated powers given, and I want you to follow this, giving to the federal government by the states. Not given by the government. Not the government. Federal government didn't say, hey, if we're going to do this, we need to regulate ourselves. They didn't say that. What they did was the states said, these are the powers that you can have. And I believe there were 19 of them. I'm not 100% certain, but I believe there were. These are the 19 powers that you can have. And that's it. No more. No more powers other than that. And over time, the federal government has gotten so big that it now supersedes the states. The federal government laws in each state supersedes its own powers. And that is a violation of the Constitution of the United States. That is what the gun control political agenda is about. In my mind, that's what it's about. It's more about the federal government taking over more aspects of our lives as citizens of the United States. And they take a little bit at a time. A little bit. They don't just all of a sudden come and wipe you out. But what happens when you take all the guns away from the citizens? Did you ever think of that? And then you're defenseless. And then the government runs and operates everything. They're able to do whatever they want whenever they want. And that may sound like a conspiracy to you. It may sound like, but it's just the truth. Disarm and control. That's all any war is about. And that's what the government's doing to the people of the United States, is disarming them so they can't fight back. Beat them into submission so you can make them do whatever you want. And anybody that thinks that the color or the gender of the President of the United States makes a difference, it doesn't. Because they care about two things: money and power. That's all it's about. That's all it's about. Most of the politicians, when you get to that level, that's what it's about. It's not about what's in your best interest. It's not. And that's just the bottom line. How many decisions does Barack Obama make that affects you? None of his decisions really affect me personally, but some of the decisions that he does now will eventually trickle down and affect me. But right now it doesn't. Right now, Obamacare seems like a great deal to me because I don't have insurance. So Obamacare and me being able to get on it, hey, it's a great deal. If I get sick, I can go to the doctor. But guess who's paying for it? I'm not. It's you. If you want to turn this into a socialist welfare state, then gun control is the beginning of that. Gun control is the biggest hot topic issue that will be the catalyst for the demise of the federal republic that we are. And that's what we are. We started out, I believe, as a representative republic, but we're not a representative republic anymore because as hard as Miss May Beavers tries, her opinions are in the minority now. And her way of life is in the minority now. And for those that don't know who that is, it's one of our senators. She's our representative out of Mount Juliet. And she's a good Christian woman, graduated from Trevecca Nazarene University here in Nashville. And she's very moral and very good at what she does. But she's kind of in the minority now. And it's sad because people talk about Christian people and how they press their agenda on you. But, wow, what could be so wrong about loving someone? What could be so wrong about teaching them that it's wrong to kill somebody? And it's not right to lie to people. It's not right to steal. And that's what the Christian faith teaches. And teaches about love and forgiveness. And we've come so far in this country that we are now going to see a page turn, I believe. I'm not a prophet or anything, but I believe you're going to see a page turn in this country to where Christians are going to start being attacked for their beliefs. And the other side is going to be attacking them, telling them to be tolerant of them, but they're not tolerant of us. And I don't want to get on a religious debate because that's a topic for a different day, but I believe that gun control is going to be the catalyst for that. I believe that gun control is going to be the way that our government flexes, our federal government flexes its muscle, just like they did with Obamacare. And for those of you who don't know, if you don't have insurance, it's going to cost you $2,400 on your taxes or more. Somewhere around there is what I read. So, you can say what you want, but it's going to cost everybody money. And that's not what this country was founded on. Even though, your ideals of a country, you may like the way that things are run in Europe. And that's great. Go live in Europe. If you like the communist lifestyle, I'm sure that China will accept you. What's one or two or 1,000 more to 1 billion? I'm all for that. But this country was not founded on those principles. This country was founded by Christian men with morals and values that have shaped this country into the greatest nation on earth, and I still believe it is. I believe we've got some problems, but I still believe as a whole it is still the greatest nation on the earth. But please don't preach to me that your gun control issues is about people's lives, because it's not about the dead people's, the poor dead people that got shot. And I'm sorry, I don't know how else to put it, because your agenda is not that. There may be a few of you, 5-10%, that believe that it is, but that's not your main agenda. Your main agenda is growing the federal government further than what it needs to be already. And as we can tell, our federal government is not very good at much of anything other than creating more problems and more issues. We definitely the states need to take back the United States and lessen the federal government and get their hands out of everything from telling me how to raise my children all the way up to, and it'll come a point in time, telling me that who I can and cannot worship. And that's going to happen. Separation of church and state, for those that may or may not know, I will gladly give you everything I own. This is a challenge to anybody out there. I will give you everything in my life that I own, including the hat off my head, which I love my Titans hat. It covers up my balding head. Go Titans, by the way, and the Preds. Roll Tide. But anyway, I will give you everything I own if you can find the words anywhere in the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, any of the federal government papers that makes up the United States, the words, "There shall be a separation of church and state." Because that's not what it says. Nowhere even close. It was a letter that was written, and I believe it was written by Thomas Jefferson to a church that mentioned separation of church and state, that he was concerned with keeping them separate. But in the Constitutional Convention in 1787, their concern at that time was that it would be like England, where they appointed the church, the Catholic Church to be exact, as the ruler of all things pretty much. And what they said went. And the government functioned according to the church. And it didn't function according to the Bible. It had functioned according to the church and what the priest wanted to do, and everybody got fat and rich. And they oppressed the people, thus the United States of America. We wanted to avoid that. Kind of like the right to bear arms was to avoid that. To avoid being disarmed so the government, such as England, could take us over again. That's why we have the Second Amendment. That's why we have gun control. Why I have a big problem with the gun control issues is because they are tearing down the walls that our forefathers built. They're tearing down what many, numerous, countless men and women have sacrificed their lives, limbs, whatever, protecting, defending liberty and justice, the pursuit of happiness, whatever you want to call it. Many servicemen for 300 years have died to ensure these rights, and we honor them by spitting on their graves, by just throwing it out the window. You died for nothing. And that to me is the ultimate and most disrespectful thing that we can do to our servicemen, to those that have, and women, and those that have proudly served our country whether you agree with why we're there or not. If you don't go fight it there, eventually they're going to come here, and they've proven that. But that's what the gun control issue bothers me so much about it is it's a political agenda, and it's not about that with me. You know, whether you want to hunt, fish, whatever you want to do, you know, if you're a dude and you want to be married to a dude, I can't stop you. You know, I don't think you should have the same rights as me, but that's just my opinion. You know, because you know, if that's the case, if you legalize gay marriage, I got a best friend. Me and him's going to hook up and just go down to the courthouse and get us a marriage certificate so we can get the tax benefits. You know, we don't have to marry women. You know, as a matter of fact, he's the best relationship I've ever had, even though we're both totally heterosexual males and would probably have girlfriends on the side, but just don't want to live with them. That's a joke, but anyway, gun control to me is the catalyst for the future state of this country. And if we allow the federal government to continue to overstep its bounds, for lack of better terms, they're going to. And if you give them an inch, they're going to take a mile, as the saying goes. I hate cliches, and I'm kind of with that fella that was on Fox News. I saw that he was talking about at the end of the day, at the end of the day, at the end of the day. I get sick of hearing them too. But when it's all said and done, gun control is not the issue. It's a political agenda and a political forefront for those that want to be on a main stage talking about whatever will make them get elected, whatever will put money into their pockets, whatever. And I'm a firm believer in that. I haven't seen anything to disprove that. Nothing to disprove that. Maybe we ought to declare a war on guns, like we did a war on drugs, and go after and get all the illegal guns instead of just going after the people that try to do it the proper way. It's just amazing to me. But I'll get off the gun control issue. This program, it's running a little long today. I'm a little long-winded today. It's my first time. So I'm sure that I will shorten down the subject matter. Next show, we'll be hitting on the gay marriage issue. I've already told you a little bit about my stance on that, but we'll cut it down and talk about gay rights, and we'll talk about what an old country boy thinks about that, and we'll get into some other topics. I'm sure that I'll be back and forth on a few other things here and there. I want to get on that, and then I want to get on something good and fun. As we've got the draft coming up, we got that going on. Hoping that the Titans will do something different. So we may talk about that for a change and get off some of these other serious topics. But the serious ones are the ones that I want to deal with, because this is what's important right now. This is what is shaping our country and our children. And I'll tell you that I'm fearful for my kids. I'm very fearful for them and them growing up in a society that is immoral and where everything is dictated by what society thinks. You know, where do you get your basis for what's right and wrong? And if it's just because it's socially acceptable, then if murder all of a sudden became socially acceptable, would it make it right? And that sounds far-fetched, but think about it. You know, wasn't that long ago that cussing on TV was not socially acceptable. I will tell you that this is Hale's Bells. It's where I sound off with my mouth about things that are important to me, and local events and current history as it's being made. We live in the greatest times of the world, where things can be seen all across the world. I will say that that you can email me. It's Bells of Hale
and that's BELLSOFHALE, Bells of Hale, at yahoo.com. Right now, that'll just be the email that I use until I get a website up and running. And maybe next time we'll have some emails to talk about, maybe some difference of opinions, and we'll start getting a little format going. But today was just a trial run, and we'll see if you like staring at my ugly mug for an hour, and if not, you don't have to watch. It's just something in my outlet for now, and hopefully it'll pick up. I have a few things that I'm working on as far as sponsorships go and things like that. I have a nonprofit here called Restoration Community Outreach. You can visit their website at restorationcommunityoutreach.com. It's a local place that tutors children and some adults. They were hit by a tornado not long ago, and you can go in there and donate to PayPal to help them out. They're kind of shacked up in a small metal building that I think ought to be condemned, but right now they're doing the best they can. It's run by my grandparents, Bill and Dean Jackson, and they have dedicated their lives to their children and never been paid a cent for what they do. And my grandmother has been there 50, 60 hours a week for the last 15, 16 years, dedicating her life to that. And it's not like they're rich. My granddad's a retired minister and is still working full-time at nearly 82 years old to pay the bills. So any and all help with that organization would be greatly appreciated. And I'm sure that they would welcome it. Anybody else that has anything that they want to have mentioned or anything like that, they can shoot me an email, and that's at bellsofhale@yahoo.com. Again, I'm Mark Hale, and thank you for watching my show. And tune in next time, like I said, as we talk about gay marriages and then the upcoming NFL draft. Have a good day.